Welcome back to the mental space. Now, today's conversation is one that I should have had for many years, really, and I've been looking forward to having. Every year, Mental and myself were very honoured to be involved in the Wellbeing at Work Summits. I've been the chairman for the last 2 years, and we have conferences here in Dubai and in Riyadh. This year, I'm really excited that we're going to be joining them for Riyadh, Dubai, and Muscat. And today, I'm joined by my guest, Mr. Mark Rix, who is the Group Managing Director of the Sonus Group, which owns the Wellbeing at Work Summits. Mark, welcome to the mental space.
Scott, thank you for having me. I was starting to develop a complex that you didn't want me on your podcast.
Well, I've had many complexes, but no, I've been waiting to get you on. So we've been working together now for like 3 or 4 years. I love being part of the summits. You bring lots of different organisations together who all care about well-being at work. Before we get into what's actually happening out there, what you're seeing, because you're running these conferences all over the world, not just here, but UK, India, US. Yeah. Give me a little bit of background about you. Like, what does mental health mean to you, Mark? And why did you get into this space in the first place?
Mental health to me, I think, means waking up in the morning and being energetic and thinking, right, what are the challenges today? How am I going to enjoy them? How am I going to meet them? And who am I going to talk to and interact with? And if that's a positive feeling, then I feel my mental health's in a good place. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably 9. I often ask myself that question on my own index. Where am I today? You know. Like this morning, it was 9 because I'm seeing you and we're doing this. No, but seriously, it's a privilege to be here and every opportunity to talk about how organisations should be investing strategically in employees' well-being and mental health is a great opportunity and a privilege. So, I would say mental health to me means how do I feel each morning?
Good
That's
answer.
how I would measure it.
So you're a 9 today.
I beg your pardon?
You're a 9 today.
Yes, definitely.
Good.
Heading for 10.
Heading for 10. Well, do we ever hit a 10? But yeah, coming back to it though, I know you've been in this space now for a few years. Again, what was that? What was that spark? Why get into this? Was there a time when it wasn't a 9?
Yeah. When I think for me, Scott, it goes back way back. I mean, I'm 62 years old now, and
you look younger than me, so that's really annoying.
Only because I shaved my beard off. I think, it goes right back to when I was 18 years old.
Wow.
Long story, I'll cut it short. But for various reasons, my family emigrated to South Africa, and I went there after 2 years in the forces, and I found myself in a gold mining college in South Africa, right? Okay. So I was the only English person amongst almost 150 Afrikaners, all guys, young guys. And we were training to be what we call metalliferous miners, right? And you got a blasting license, you learn a native language, it's a common language like Esperanto for the gold mines in South Africa. And it was a year's course underground with a guarantee of a mining contract at the end of it, right? So there I am. And the reason I was there was to get a work permit. That was the only thing I could find that would give me a work permit before I was deported, okay? So, and by the time my national residency came through, I was almost through the year's course. So it was, I finished it and got the contract. Anyway, to answer your question, when I was doing that training, we were going down the pit every morning, 5 a.m., 1.5 kilometers, whatever it was, 8-hour shifts. I didn't speak a word of Afrikaans, yet that didn't really matter because they could all speak English. But I was the token Brit who took the brunt for people's ill feeling towards the Brits from the Boer War, actually. Okay. So my great-great-great-grandfathers were killing their great-great-great-grandfathers. And I guess in any organization or any social environment where you are different, you become a target, right? And these are young guys. So I learned very quickly, and what was impressed upon me during that year was how a workplace shouldn't be. So, I can remember one incident where we were going down the shaft in the morning in the cage, as it was called. 90 guys, 30 on each level. Take the brakes off, down you go in the dark. And I was trying to learn a bit of Afrikaans, and I'd asked one of my fellow students, how do you say good morning in Afrikaans and greet the boss, kind of thing, who was coming down with us this particular morning. I won't repeat what I was told and what it means, but it wasn't pleasant. And I actually addressed the boss with that, and I got punched in the face, right? So I always remember thinking, now, I'm glad that happened, because it taught me then and impressed upon me then, this is not how you treat people. Yeah. This is not how you should feel at work. This is not... now I've got all the terms for it. It wasn't psychologically safe. I didn't have belonging and all this kind of thing. Yeah. And that's my best example to go back when I was 18 in a gold mine. And how the absolute polar opposite of what a good workplace should be. Yeah. And I'm not saying it wasn't productive, it wasn't efficient, it just wasn't human.
Wow.
So from that point, then, when I left that and then embarked on a career in the media, it was always in the back of my mind that if I'm ever in a position where I'm running a team or just dealing with colleagues or anybody for that matter, how would I expect to be treated on the other side of the desk, and that's always been for me my own guiding principle, really.
So the well-being at work...
I don't know if that answered your question.
Do you know what? It's actually blown my mind a little bit there, Mark, because we've known each other for a number of years, and I never knew that you used to go down to a gold mine, 1.5 kilometres underground. Yeah. Which sounds mildly horrific to start with.
It wasn't fun.
Yeah, and I could see when you were telling the story as well, like you were getting a little bit, so... Is there a part of you that's still down that gold mine, or have you managed to process everything that happened to you back then?
I learned a lot of good lessons there, actually. So if you can picture the scene, the South African government were looking for passport holders because during those days a lot of South Africans couldn't travel internationally because of apartheid and what have you. So the fact that I had a British passport for some reason was attractive. I got the job very quickly to go and join this government training school for gold mining, which is the biggest industry. Yeah. And basically, when I let's say graduated and got a mining contract with Anglo American after which I did after the year's training. What I'd learned was, as an 18-year-old, because I then had a contract which gave me 50 people. I had 5 teams of 10 guys who'd been mining all their lives, right? I was wet behind, behind the ears.
18 years old.
18, 19, by that time, 19 years old, put in charge of these people underground, and we were using like 200 kilograms of dynamite every day, blasting tunnels and doing all sorts of stuff, right? Which I'd learn every single task that they would ever perform in the year in the college. And it was in my nature not to judge people by the colour of their skin or their religion or their, whatever.
Their background.
They're just human beings who I work with, and we had a job to do in a very dangerous environment. And I always felt that, I would learn from them a lot more than they're going to learn from me. Yeah. Even though I had the stripes on my shoulder, I did not have the experience. Yeah. And I had to balance being the boss with actually deferring to their experience in that environment, because I didn't want to die, basically, and we didn't want to get anything wrong. I didn't want anyone to get injured or hurt, and which frequently happened, obviously. So I learned quickly that a person's name is very important to them. Mm-hmm. That was my first lesson. That to listen and really listen was very important. Yeah. And that to have fun was very important. And to understand and be curious about them was important, but without judging. I'll come back to that. later.
Yeah.
I have an example of why curiosity without judgment is a good thing. So, I in thinking about what I went through at that age, they were real lessons that were like branded on me, you know. And
I mean, it sounds like a kind of like leadership college. That
it wasn't, but you didn't know it. You didn't know it was happening.
But in that, because also, as you say, very dangerous job. And I've seen this, and we both know, like the likes of EGA, where again they've got that sort of. Perilous is the wrong word, but there's a lot of risk in the process where psychological safety really does relate to safety of, and human life and the protection of human life. Whereas, it's not just pushing a piece of paper around.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I could stay in this gold mine with you for hours, but
no, we'll get off track. But it was a one. At the time, it was horrible. I hated it, and I couldn't wait to not be doing it, quite frankly. It paid well, by the way. And I was a young guy living at home with my parents. And so that was okay. And at that age, I think your appreciation of the danger you might be in is far less than it is now when you're 62 years old. So for me, it was just a job, I guess. A messy, dirty, hard, dangerous, all that stuff job, but and quite unsociable actually, because when you're going to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, you're not out all night.
No.
So it was an odd existence for a couple of years, but great lessons looking back.
We've been working together on the summits now for sort of 3 years, and Mental's been going for 3.5 years, and it feels. Even now, and that's a relatively short span of time, that the conversations are changing a bit. Even that first year, it felt more like companies were more curious as opposed to focused on action. But how have you seen attitudes changing, even like the last 3 or 4 years? I think almost like post-COVID, as to how important, and how seriously they're taking this topic of well-being at work.
I think, so globally, we've got 23 events.
Yeah.
23 one-day events in 23 cities in 16 different countries. So we're seeing, a lot of regional nuances and differences, particularly in terms of religion and culture and so on, and the pace and position at which certain countries are at in the conversation, let's say. But there's an enormous amount of commonality in the challenges that organisations face, I think. So this region, for example, I would say, is a very young population generally.
Yeah.
And we know that they now demand to know what a potential employer or an existing employer, if I'm going to stay with them, what are they doing for me? Do their values align with my values? Can I say what I feel? Can I talk to people? Do I respect my manager? That kind of stuff. Yeah. So I think that's really important. I think the second shift that we've seen, in this region, is the mindset that this is not an HR thing that the HR guys do, right? This actually is embedded now and has to be embedded in organizational systems and capabilities. And it's intrinsic to future competitiveness and success and the ability to be an employer of choice, attract and retain talent, all the obvious stuff, of reducing the costs of health insurance, right? Absenteeism, morale, engagement, that kind of stuff. And I think actually if you look at something like the Gallup State of the Global Workplace Report for 2025, which I love it. I think it's brilliant. And it, it goes back 10 years. So it's rolling data, fantastic global sample. You can't really argue with it on generic terms. And I think, if you look at their engagement stats for the Middle East, it's horrific.
Yeah, I mean, actually mentl got, and because we presented it at your summits before. I mean, we got exclusive data from Gallup for this region.
Yep.
And the cost of presenteeism, the cost of disengagement in the workplace. I mean, here in the UAE is $24 million per hour. It's nearly like 90 million per hour in Saudi as well.
Well, it's mind blowing.
So
it really is.
I mean, me and you are both like singing from the same song sheet on that one.
Yeah.
How is this region differing then? What are the differences? Because I know there's the commonalities, which is it's a leadership versus the leadership perspective. This change, we've got the generational challenges, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But you talk about the commonalities, but what are the kind of differences?
I think that some of the differences could be linked to, and the changes and the progression of the conversation of mental health and employee well-being, and the subsequent investments in that could be linked to the fact that when you've got a national narrative around visions such as Oman's 2040 vision and Saudi's 2030 vision and UAE and so on, organizations want to align to that. So, the pillars of those visions are underpinned, like in the UAE now with the focus on mental health, for example. Yeah, that's brilliant because that's almost the same, or is the same as we say that a well-being strategy will not work unless it's led from the top in an organization. Well, it's the same with governments. Yeah. So if you've got the UAE government leading the charge in terms of what organisations need to do around mental health for their employees, people are going to sit up and take notice and change the way they operate. So I think that's a key thing here, personally. I also think that, particularly in Saudi, that to be competitive on an international stage and recruit people and recruit the best talent internationally, you have to be able to talk about your credible people strategy and how that's going to benefit employees. So, and the young population. And I think you could argue that if you compare this region to Europe and maybe the US, there's a bit of catch up in terms of, getting up to speed in terms of the mindset around investing in well-being. And this whole idea that well-being is the fluffy thing, it's not. It has to be an intrinsic cultural element of your business.
It's foundational. It's foundational. Yeah. And I mean, look, we've seen this at the government level. Both of us have seen this at the government level here in different countries, whether it be, like you say, whether it be Saudi, whether it be the UAE, whether it be Oman. And it feels like the government level's going like that. If the trajectory is like that at the government level, how would you say it is with the private sector? Because there is a generational thing, there is a legacy thing, there is a so perhaps the private sector is playing catch up. But what are you seeing there? Like, where are the barriers and where are the big opportunities?
I think the barriers are potentially not a barrier, a mistake that could be made by organisations is to talk the talk, but then actually not change the systems and the processes in an organisation. So
tick boxing, performative.
And again, we'll go back to Gallup, right? Yeah. And I think one of the outstanding things I read in that report was that over half of managers globally are not trained to be in the jobs they're in. Right now, if that's true, that's pretty scary. And going back to my days as a CEO or running, relatively large workforces, I can hold my hands up and say we put people in jobs, leadership roles in middle management that actually weren't trained to do it. Yeah, they were just good guys, or they'd done really well as a salesperson. Let's make them a manager. Now, what that creates is obviously disengagement. Yeah, because one, that person is very quickly exposed if they're not capable or trained. Two, the team members that they're responsible for can't relate or recognise this, so that there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And that's a scary statistic. So I think that's a big thing for organisations that they need to be. They need to be focused on the capabilities and support that they give to their line management.
The leaders, the line managers. Yeah, I mean, in two fronts, we've seen the statistics that actually the line manager has a 70% kind of impact on an individual's well-being inside the organisation. And you can tell people to be resilient, but even within the organisation, they've still only got about 30% sway over how they're going to be, and it's their line manager. So the line manager has an outsized responsibility. But you remind me of, obviously we both worked in Oman.
Yep.
And actually being the editor-in-chief, or chief executive editor, I think the title was, of the Times of Oman, that was my first actual proper leadership role. And I'd never had any management training. And I look back at some of the mistakes and some of the emails and some of the, and cringe. I made so many mistakes because I was so utterly insecure as a leader. And it took me a long, long time to kind of work through that, get more competent, begin to understand that, how to lead human beings, because I was good at a process. I was a good journalist. I knew what a good story was. I knew how to put a newspaper together that was, I knew how to grow audiences. I did not know how to lead people. And that then made me insecure. And I see that in so many organizations.
We get asked all the time by companies, whether they're as a delegate representing a company or a commercial partner, what should we, how should we start? What should we do to build our well-being, our people strategy? And some of the best answers for me are, well, get out of your office, go and talk to your people. Yeah, there's a good start. Actually display empathy. Maybe train your managers as coaches. Train them to listen properly and to be authentic and care. And I think it starts with that humanness. The whole thing starts with that humanness. Because people want that contact, I think loneliness, disconnection, all those things are really, really bad, especially in a hybrid world and remote working. Well, I've got it now,
We've just done the Cigna, Mental writes the Cigna International Health Study every year, and loneliness this year in the UAE, but globally as well, but very, very high in the UAE. Yeah. A big issue, particularly for the younger generations coming through, which is, and we're of a certain age. I think I'm Gen X. I think you might actually be a boomer.
Only about 6 months. I checked it.
But it's interesting. Me and you were advocating for well-being in the workplace. And we've now got 4 generations in the workplaces. What kind of pressures do you think that's causing?
Oh, yeah. That's incredible. I think now then, that's a really good topic, because how do you manage across generations effectively? And I think that underlines the very fact that you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to your people. So it has to be personalised. We're seeing it in the UK, for example, with healthcare, with the NHS. It's all about personalisation. In fact, we're on the verge of launching a new event around that. So more on that.
Okay.
At some point. However, this whole thing about personalisation, obviously it's expensive, because variation in any industry, in any walk of life, becomes expensive. But you can't afford not to personalise what you're doing. You can have generic policies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But unless you are communicating with your people individually as an organisation through your line managers, who are hopefully trained to do that properly and listen and gather that kind of data, you have to know what's motivating and prioritize and being prioritised by your individual employees. And I think if you don't know that, then you run the risk of disengagement, low morale, and so it goes on.
You talk about that kind of cost. All right, so it's more expensive, but actually, do you feel it is more expensive? Because if we think about, again, globally, $8.9 trillion being lost to lost productivity through disengagement. Again, if you look at that potentially $42 billion going up in smoke here in the UAE through disengagement. Sometimes, I think possibly the mistake companies make is they look at well-being as an expense as opposed to an investment.
Yeah.
What's your view on the ROI? Because you've been talking to organizations around the world. And what are you hearing back from those organizations that are embracing well-being? We say it's good business to be a good business. What's the evidence out there?
Well, I think now, compared to, say, I don't know, pre-COVID, let's say, is that there are the tools now and technology that enable your HR director to actually gather data and present that in a way that the leadership of an organization would see it in the context of the bottom line of the organization, right? So, measuring the cost of healthcare, measuring the cost of recruitment and retention, all that kind of thing. Customer satisfaction, which would link back to disengagement and morale. And so I think to answer that question is that the available technology now enables the justification of the investments a lot better than perhaps it might have done 5 years ago.
Because it's less intangible. We can actually stick some numbers around it now and make the business case as opposed to moving from fluffy to foundational.
Yeah, and because if you look at the suppliers to the industry now, the tech companies, the consultants, the training companies, the financial providers, whoever they are and whatever they specialize in, their products and services are so cutting edge now that data is readily available, whether it's through wearables or through an EAP or apps, whatever it might be. I just think technology enables the argument to be a lot stronger now for that investment.
With the perspective of someone that's been working for a number of years, same as I have, the younger generation, whether it be Gen Z, Gen Alpha's coming through. I mean, Cigna International Health Study for the UAE showed that 20% of young people in the workplace between 18 to 24 were suffering from and struggling with manageable stress. I remember the world of work I entered and the lack of technology. And while there was hard work, there was the opportunity to switch off. But this generation, this younger generation are struggling with stress, and they're often written off by managers of our generations as snowflakes, weak, not resilient. What's your view of the world of work that the young people who are entering these days?
I think, there is. I've just taken on, for example, 3 months ago, a 24-year-old, he's 24, lives at home on an apprentice scheme, okay? 15-month apprentice scheme. So we wanted to engage in that and help. And we also wanted actually to have a breath of fresh air in the organisation that came with no preconceptions, didn't really understand well-being at work, but would actually look at what we're doing and say, why are you doing that? Yeah. And that's nonsense. Or I think you should do it this way or whatever. So we wanted to challenge ourselves. So we did this and we took said person on, right? And then what we find out is actually one of the biggest concerns during the process of hiring this team member was their concern about being isolated because we were working remotely. Yeah, and that was really telling for me that you got a young male. Yeah, and I compared it to when I was a young male. That was the last thing on my mind, that I'm going to be lonely. Yeah, yeah. Or not connected, to other people or the team or whatever. So I think that's a big one. We underestimate the value of that human interaction and being part of a physical team that, might be together during the day.
Yeah.
The second thing was that's become very apparent is their ability to be able to express themselves without fear of impairment or stigma or judgment. And this, just going back to that other point I made earlier, that for us to have curiosity without judgment of him, creates belonging. Because we can ask questions that they'll give us genuine, truthful answers to, knowing that we're not going to judge them on the basis of what they say to us.
And that's true team performance, though, isn't it? Though that's the kind of psychological safety that you find in the All Blacks rugby team or in the Red Arrows display team. That ability to say, "I'm going to say what I feel, and I'm not saying it to annoy you. I'm saying it because this is how I see things."
We encourage it in our team. We've I've got now 20 people globally, all remote, on different contracts, if you like. 2 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever, in different time zones and so on. And it's a big thing for us to say to them that, and we meet regularly, we do everything we can to create that connection and that team spirit and culture, even though we're remote. So the best chance for us to actually build on that is at our physical events. But having that spread of age and generations, managing across those generations, from me, 62 down to a guy who's 24, is fascinating, actually. But you have to listen to them and you have to give them voice. And it's incredible what their perceived insecurities are that you don't think they might be. You know.
Such as?
Well, can they keep up with the pace of technology? And is AI going to replace them? I don't think it, and our answer to that would be, well, and we hear this at our summits, AI won't replace you, but somebody who embraces it will. So it's there to help and make you more efficient and to hopefully, in our case, deliver a better experience at an in-person event, but it won't replace that in-person connection, because human beings are sociable. They want to connect.
You learned in that goldmine that listening was vital. Why do you think it's so difficult for some leaderships to listen?
I think because they might not be trained to be in the role they're in, or properly equipped.
So there's that fear and insecurity.
There's that fear, so they're consumed with, am I going to keep my job? And I need to focus on keeping my job, right? And maybe because if I expose my if I expose my true self, then that weakens me when actually it strengthens you, or should do. So how do I present an authentic version of myself to my team and the company? But in a safe environment that it's not going to punish me. I think it's the big question we get. I don't know if I answered this earlier, but anyway, how do we start to build our wellbeing? Train your managers as coaches. Invest in training your managers to listen and to be confident enough to be authentic and to care. And I think, by the way, that's not an easy thing to do.
No, and I was just thinking about that. I mean, it's an interesting one. But the way things are going as well now with AI, I mean, if you're a leader, and I get the fear, but if you're a leader that can't lead people and all you are good at is a process, it feels like, if I look 10 years down the line, a lot of processes are going to be automated, and actually it's the humanity, it's the empathy, it's the authenticity that is the thing that will keep you in your job, not cost you your job.
Also, I think, that distinction between manager and leader is another conversation, right? So you can be a manager, but, how is that different to being a leader? I like the idea that a leader creates other leaders. You know, I think that's what a leader is.
Who taught you that?
I don't know. I read it somewhere. Think about it in the context of who I've seen in my career growing up.
Yeah.
And did they create leaders? And the ones I respect did, I think. The previous boss of mine helped me, I think, in that respect. So, and that's they weren't necessarily the best managers, if you know what I mean.
They were good leaders, but not necessarily great managers of processes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you know, things were lacking. For example, like, I don't know, it could have been a 6-monthly appraisal that never happened. You know. Right. But I still loved the person because they were genuine, authentic. I felt safe with them. They helped me. They passed on they shared their experiences and learnings. Yeah. But didn't do the detail.
But the feeling valued and feeling empowered.
And you remember people how they make you feel.
That's the old.
It's true though, isn't it? It's like
Mary
a teacher.
Angelou phrase, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, you remember. It's like you remember a good teacher.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, I think you have to be careful when you're talking about managers and leaders. I think they're different animals.
We could go on about this all day, I think, and we would, and we will. But before time overtakes us, tell us a little bit more about the conferences that are coming up, the summits, which I can't wait to be part of again this year.
Yeah, and thank you for that, and thank you for your support of those. And it's just been fun working with you. And you were with us when we launched in Saudi. We're now into our fourth year. Yeah. Second year in Cairo this year, and second time in Oman actually, and our 10th edition in Dubai. So we start on the 20th of January in Cairo. Yeah. At the Kempinski in New Cairo. We moved so that's Tuesday. On the Thursday 22nd, we're in Riyadh at Al Faisal University. 27th of January, we are in Muscat at Omantel's headquarters, and in Dubai on the 29th, the Thursday at Standard Chartered in DIFC. So each is an in-person day. We spend all year for all our summits all around the world looking for speakers and people that we feel are doing great things for their people. Yeah. And to come and talk about that either in the form of a presentation, a panel session, or a one-to-one discussion on stage. We have workshops. We would have a lot of, time to network and share and connect with peer-to-peer and with suppliers. So it's an ecosystem, almost a marketplace, I guess, for the HR industry, but to learn and share and connect.
What do people who come take away from it? I mean, when you do the customer feedback, like, what's the reason to come?
One of the key reasons is reinforcement that actually the things I'm doing. So I'm a delegate, I'm a senior HR leader, or a business owner, entrepreneur, and I'm at the summit, and the feedback we get is, it's great that I came because actually I know I'm doing the right things. Yeah. Or we came across a wonderful new strategy. What we learned from Speaker X in Organization Y was amazing. We want to learn more about that. So they might then reach out independently, and this creates the community. Yeah. So over 11 years. We now have in excess of 30,000 people who subscribe to us. Wow. We have a global advisory board of 40 people who are in senior positions around the world in international brands, telling us these are the topics that you should be dealing with at your events. This is what keeps us up at night and challenges us. So that keeps us relevant and at the cutting edge of what's being discussed. We would hope that. And we do get a lot of people who come year after year to the summits, which is wonderful. And the reason is that they learn something new, or share something new, or connect with somebody new. And the whole idea is that if one of our delegates goes back to their workplace the following day and makes a positive difference for one person, then we've succeeded. So, but essentially, the whole mission of our summits and our global subscription community online in our hub is to forward, amplify, grow, and keep at the top of the corporate agenda the idea that investing strategically in your employees' well-being and mental health will actually sustain you in the long term.
For you guys who are watching this as well, we're going to put the link to our community in our show notes, and we've got a very special offer for anyone who wants to attend any of the summits. So we'll tell you more about that in the show notes, but look out for the link in the show notes. Very special offer. Before time beats us, you were a judge this year for the Mentl Awards for the 2025 edition, and you're going to come back and be a judge for the 2026 edition this year.
I am.
Just could you give us a little bit of your perspective of that process, being a judge, what you saw, and what gave you hope? What were your impressions of what was happening in the entrance there?
I think the first thing that struck me was going back to this idea that you have to embed into your culture policies and processes that are relating to your well-being or people strategy, right? So it's not this tick box we talked about.
Yeah.
So I noticed that in the entries that I judged, I think you gave me 13 or 14 companies that I had to look at. And I would say all of them demonstrated that this was it was mental health predominantly, but obviously we're talking well-being, right? What they were doing was embedded.
Yeah. Back to that foundational.
In systems and processes, and it was part of the DNA of their organization. It was not, we do this on a Friday and we do that, it was embedded and invested in significantly. And the big thing was led from the top. So that struck me, actually. And the other thing that struck me was the literacy around mental health, I think, is the way to describe that. Because outside of this region, people say to me around the world, there's a big stigma around talking about mental health in the Middle East. And I said, well, where's your evidence for that?
Yeah.
Because it's not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing and what we're seeing is that actually, even 2 years ago, for a good example, and I'll name the person, it was Khalid Al Ghafali at the who was the COO of the Saudi National Infrastructure Fund.
I remember, she's amazing. She was very inspiring when she spoke.
She's fabulous. And Khalid's big team, 200 people in charge of billions of US dollars in infrastructure projects in Saudi, right? So very prominent female government official. Yeah. So I rang her because I was going to interview her on stage, if you remember, and I rang her and we had a pre-event discussion. So I'd done all my research, and I was like, right, I'm going to ask her about these projects and those projects, and so I start off the conversation by saying, okay, Khalid, this is great. I'd like to talk about this, that, and the other. And she stopped me. She said, Mark, hang on. What I'd like to talk about is my son's autism diagnosis when he was 6. Yeah. And how I dealt with that myself, and then how I managed that in the context of being the COO, and talked about it publicly and at work, which in turn created a more psychologically safe environment for my employees to come forward with issues. Yeah. And I'm thinking, wow, right, okay, this just goes absolutely against the narrative that exists elsewhere about
outside of this region.
Yeah. And it was a wonderful moment, actually. Yeah. And since then, particularly with the success of mental space and your awards. I mean, look at the growth of your awards. I mean, it's an indicator that actually organizations are very, very keen and cognitive of the fact that you have to deal with your employees' mental health, and it has to be good.
I agree with you 1,000,000% on that. Obviously, I think one of my favourite things about the awards this year was actually talking about and like just sharing some information about all the finalists every day. And then when you took a step back, I mean, you saw 15, 20 entries. Yep. I saw, all of the entries, and you were like, my word, there is a lot going on, and a lot of people are trying to make the workplace better. So
and the passion of those entries, you could feel the passion. It was a 2-page PDF. I think it was the standard. This is how you got to enter,
and then supporting evidence,
and supporting evidence, blah blah blah. But you read those. You read those documents, and it was like, wow, you can feel the passion coming through.
There were so many personal human stories inside them as well.
Yeah, it was quite privileged to do it, actually. It was really good, really good. And from owner-managed businesses through to big global players. Yeah. The passion was there, and that bodes well for the future here.
My heart is heart. At the end of the day, whether you're in a global organisation or if you are like an SME.
Totally.
Well, thank you again for your efforts on judging, and when we'll get you to do it again this year. Quite quickly, if anyone wants more information about the summits upcoming, where do they go? Where do they find it?
So you can go to wellbeingatwork.world, where all our summits are detailed in date order for the rest of 2026. Well, from January to December, and you can book tickets there and access the agendas if they're published for each day's events. Yeah, all the events now for Cairo, Riyadh, Muscat, and Dubai are up on their own websites, on our website with the agendas. Nice picture of you, Scott, on those as well. So
do they exist?
There's a reason to log on, right? So I would. I
think you just lost a few ticket sales.
I would urge anyone to attend who has the authority and passion and willingness to come and connect and learn something new. It's a great environment, great day. Friendly, fun, but with a purpose. The purpose is that we want to, again, amplify the idea that employee wellbeing investment should be strategic and absolutely business critical.
Amazing. Mark, thanks very much for your time. You have literally been a gold mine of wisdom, and I've been waiting for 50 minutes to crack that joke. No, thank you very much. Guys, thank you very much for joining us at the Mental Space again. As you know, if you're watching this on YouTube, that subscribe button is just there. Hit it. It takes you a second, but it helps us more than you know. And of course, you can find us on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts or all of your other podcast channels. And again, hit that subscribe button and check out the show notes for that special offer in terms of the Wellbeing at Work Summits, because we'd be excited for you to join us. One final time, thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.